What is up, stream? It's Sunday. It is a fantastic day because we are going into uncharted territory, metaverse chat. As you know, we've been working in VoxEdit, making voxel creations and designs. Today, we're gonna take that to the next level.
True that. Hi everyone, I'm Halfd0rk. Thanks for having me on Squigglyverse.
We got Halfd0rk and we got Bobby Totino about to give you an epic episode today. Shout out for tuning in. Now, real quick, we're gonna bridge the transition from VoxEdit to Game Maker in about 20 seconds, and then we're gonna switch it over to the expert in the room and learn a little bit more about how to make playable experiences in the Sandbox game. Now, obviously, there's a lot of questions that we have to answer, but here's where we're gonna start. We are going to start pretty much in VoxEdit. I'm gonna start on a template, as you guys know, and then we are going to take this template into the Game Maker. So I'm gonna start with the spider, and I'm gonna get my spider real quick. As you know, saving a template, chat, there is nothing new that you are witnessing, but we are about to take this into the next level. So that's pretty much what we're doing. The VoxEdit is loading, but in the meantime, Bobby, how are we?
Doing all right today. Doing all right this Sunday. I'm still testing out the capabilities of spheres in Game Maker. I've got it working kind of. It works kind of like a little soccer ball. So cleaning that up right now.
I can't say I've ever really had a proper curved object in the sandbox, so I'm curious to see what you're making.
There's a
Well, shout out Erica Gloom. She showed me how to take voxels and rotate them on their axis to kind of create a circle, and then I took that and made a circle of circles.
Circle of circles.
Circle of circles. Well, chat, because VoxEdit is taking forever to load, we're gonna cover it later. We're going to move to Halfd0rk and Bobby Totino. What is up, Halfd0rk? You are on the screen. Bobby's name is looking good on the screen. We are pumped, man.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Halfd0rk. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with me, I am a game developer in the Sandbox space, and I've been streaming for about 2-3 weeks now and kind of documenting, more like devlogs as they're called, of my progress learning and creating in the Sandbox Game Maker. So with Ed, you've likely had a lot of experience building these VoxEdit creations and maybe even animating them. But now we're going to take it a step further and just kind of explore how we can make those types of assets, the ones you've been creating, and bringing them into the Game Maker, giving them behaviors, components, and an environment to play around in. So Ed, can they see my screen right now?
We absolutely can see your screen, and we're looking at, if I'm not wrong, a 1x1 plot of land?
Yes. So these 1x1 plots of land, they have a specific number of kind of these voxel cubes. So each one of these cubes makes up, the entirety of the land. It is, I believe, 98 by 98 in width, and then the height is 128. So there's several things that we're going to be covering today, and we're going to be going slowly through the entire process of building a game, and questions, of course, are more than welcome. Ed will be, the host, and I'm just going to be building in the background and answering questions as they come. But what I'll start on now, as the first, few thoughts come through, is terraforming. So, Ed, what's your description of terraforming?
Man, terraforming is turning this flat piece of grass into something with hills, caves, biomes, you name it.
Yeah, for sure. So there's only one real tool you need for terraforming, and you'll see it on the left side of the screen. These are the tools that you can use in the Vox the Sandbox Game Maker. So the first one, and the one we're going to start with, is the brush tool. So with the brush tool selected, you can go into your blocks, and you'll be able to choose from any of those that you've added to the Game Maker. So in Vox Edit, you can create your own custom blocks. However, Sandbox has also provided you with several great starting points. So for example, if I wanted to have dirt, dirt's a great starting point, right? Dirt brown could be like your entire base floor. So just to give you kind of like a starting point, we can create a new floor here, and we'll start at 1 cube and then drag all the way across. Now, this land that I've started with was quite literally the default land, but there's tons of templates as well as pre-built like puzzles that you can start with and try to get a better understanding. However, with terraforming, that's more or less like a great like place to jump into the Game Maker. So that's what we'll start with, and then we can explore all the different templates. So this here is the very first asset that you'll see, and it's called the Avatar's Portal. And if I were to hit tab, that's where I spawn. So this is the very first asset that you'll see on the map outside of all of your blocks, your land here. So that being said, we are going to start building what can only be labeled as a platform experience. So what's a platform experience, Ed? Like, and why might we be building one today?
Man, are you like maybe a jump puzzle? Like, you're gonna have to give us a little bit more detail.
Sure. Well, the main reason I'm covering like a platformer type experience is because there's a contest going on right now, and that is about retro games. And so if you've played retro games, which we discovered at the GMAE show, is anything older than 20 years. So if it's a 20-year or older game, that is retro. Most of those that I grew up on were like Mega Man and, you know, Castlevania, Metroid. So those are basically side-scrolling experiences. So that's what we're going to be kind of focused on and like pointing our brainwaves towards. But to build up to that, we're going to need to terraform. And so terraform, as we discovered, is building the world around us. It's the environment. So Ed had mentioned like that might be mountains and hills and such. So using the brush tool, which is the first thing we're going to learn about, we can click between various kind of like brush templates. So free brush is basically you're dragging your mouse and you're building blocks wherever, you know, you start and you end. You can also add, and we'll definitely go over this several times because it's not something you'll pick up at first, but it will be something that you'll eventually kind of like incorporate into your own workflow. But you can hold down shift, and by holding down shift after you click, you can build upwards. So if I wanted to make like a column here, you can also hold down right click on a block and drag down, and that will delete the blocks. Let's say I didn't like this block. While the free tool is selected, I can also, you know, hold down control and replace those blocks.
Ooh.
So these are kind of things you'll incorporate as you learn, but I'm just kind of demonstrating some of the various tools under your belt.
Yeah. And moving around in the editor is a little weird, isn't it? Like you have to do the...
Oh, yes. So, yeah, just to segue off of that, moving around is something you will have to get used to. Not every 3D software is the same, but if you're familiar with like computer games, WASD, those keys are going to be your friends. But as I'm moving, right now I'm holding down D, and that's panning to the right. Holding down A, that's panning to the left. And as you could guess, W is forward and S is backwards. So that's a great place to start. However, just to take it a step further, if you're holding down Alt and you use your left mouse button, you can orbit your camera. If you hold down the right mouse button and Alt on your keyboard, which is right next to the space bar, you'll be able to pan the camera. Whereas if you're doing WASD, you're more or less kind of moving or shuttling the camera, as they say.
Have you tried doing both? Because that's kind of hacker mode.
Oh yeah, here's both at the same time. It's a roller coaster ride. Let's go. It's too fast, actually. I'm getting nauseous. I'm sorry for those of you at home. But today we're going to be making a platformer. So let's go ahead and start building out the scene around our game. So let's start with something basic. The first thing I want to do is kind of have some cool mountains in the background. And that means wherever my character starts or spawns, we want to kind of like build around that camera view. So before I go any further, I do want to adjust the camera, because if you noticed, and I'll just show you right now, if I tab in, it starts the game, and this is more or less the default camera settings. But what we want to do for our game and this platformer, as I'm introducing it to you, is have it a set camera where we're always viewing it from one particular angle. So to do that, we'll go into the global parameters, the camera settings, and then we'll have it angled. And so the camera pitch, which is the inclination, so like what level it's looking at, I like it at 0 because it keeps it flat from you. Let's see how that looks. So right now, like if we were going left to right, this is the new setting that we incorporated. So I can't go up and down with my camera, but I can go left to right. And that can be disorienting, so we're going to continue to play with the camera settings, and I hope all of you who do, look at this, kind of like poke around with your own parameters and find something that works for you. But I like to have it locked. And so now you'll see when the camera's locked, and I tab back into the Game Maker,
Whoa.
I can't move the camera.
Yo. That's cool.
Yeah, and so if you've ever played a platformer game, it's like you're jumping from like ledges on a vertical space while you're side scrolling from left to right, generally. It's like reading a book almost. What kind of platformer should we make? Bobby asks. And that's up to you. It's all about what you create. However, it's always great to have like an idea in mind, like a sci-fi like exploration, or perhaps like you're going through the jungle, or maybe it's like volcanic themed, But yeah, if you have any questions to kind of point us in the right direction, Ed, I'm all ears, and I'm happy to be here.
I think chat wants a futuristic side scroller.
Do they?
I do.
Okay.
I have a question actually for you, because
Sure.
I was trying to make lava do damage literally 2 days ago, and I just learned how to do it, and I thought it was pretty cool because you can theoretically make any block give you damage when you interact with it, not just lava, correct?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, should we explore that right now while we're thinking about it?
I mean, I've never seen it done, but one of those glyphs or one of those blue things, maybe because then we can get creative with the assets that we build. We can create spikes, we can create custom blocks, etc.
Yeah, I like where your head's at. So right now, if you noticed in the Game Maker, I was dragging and dropping various blocks to my toolbar. So this toolbar is basically like 10 shortcuts for specific assets. So the first 4 I went with blue, but let's go ahead and add the red ones too, and we're gonna focus on that futuristic idea. So I think, following that logic, we can make these red, like pure red blocks, like these could hurt you if you touch them. But the blue blocks, those are safe. So let's have like just something simple to start with. But this red block, we need to turn on the like damage, and that would be in the controller settings. And then while you're in, just to start, global parameters, controller settings, you would click on components, and then you can see this little section here that says damaging blocks. So now we can click add, and then select from here the red metaverse block. Yeah, and there's so many different ones, and they all have different names. So let's search metaverse, and you can find the corrupted block. So that block, because we have a health pool of like 100 something, it'll only do 20 damage, but let's up it. Let's make it automatically, destroy the avatar.
Nice.
So now, if you were to touch this red block, just on accident, definitely not on purpose. There we go.
So, I'm asking, does that only apply for blocks, or does that work for assets? Like, if I run into the treasure chest of coins, can I equally die?
Ooh, good question. So, right here in this settings, specifically, it only applies to blocks. But you can totally set up, and this might be advanced mechanics that we tackle later, but like an object could damage you if it touches you. So I don't want to go into detail there because that might be a little bit advanced, but do know that you can set up an object to hurt you. I'll just kind of poke around, see if I can find something while we're thinking about, making this platformer. So let's say this treasure here. This treasure could damage you. And I'm just peeking through, just kind of like using my deduction and all of the experience I've learned to just try to troubleshoot that one particular thought. Because when you're developing a game, these are the thoughts you're going to have. It's going to be, oh, how can I, make this do that? And so at your disposal, each of these objects that you can drag and drop into this 3D space, such as this treasure here, each of them can be given behaviors and components. So this kind of like damaging asset that you had in mind, it's not super clear to me. But if we were to add like a behavior, for example, let's give it an enemy. Like we can have this enemy kind of chase us. And instead of like actually chasing us, it could just attack us if we touch it. So let's see if this works, just to, troubleshoot. So as soon as I walk over it, this pile of coins is going to reach out and grab me. But that's just an example. Again, that's more advanced, and we will continue to kind of build our way up. So quite literally build our way. We're going to create this platformer. So while I'm building here and kind of terraforming to start, any thoughts there, Ed?
We've got a question in the chat real quick from Brock.
Yeah.
He was wondering, is there a way to localize the camera side scrolling to just a specific region or like a specific part of the game? Or is that like a global setting?
Unfortunately, you cannot change the camera settings when the game is active. So like we can obviously change it here in the parameters and then play with different, angles. However, once you're in the game, there's no changing it, at least not at the moment.
Appreciate it.
Cool, and I just want to shout out the chat. Shout out SandFam pulling up, Sage D, Bartholomew, Game Dizzy in the chat, Al Greens. We appreciate all of you. The community's growing. We're excited. Halfd0rk, this is cool. One of my favorite things about this format of like podcast / somebody builds in the background is just seeing your thought process, because everybody looks at the same tools in a slightly different way.
Yeah, 100%. And I try my best to kind of think out loud. And those of you that consider streaming or, want to try streaming, I highly recommend, giving it a shot, mainly because you're thinking in a new kind of perspective. You're trying to explain it as you go. If people are trying to, get your point of view, your perspective. Also, you're getting feedback in real time. I think streaming is something every creator needs to consider.
Halfd0rk, did you know Squiggly is going to have a streaming course on getting set up with OBS and all of the complexities of it?
I have heard a little bit about that, and I'm excited to learn more. I know it's something that we might have even talked about just a little bit.
Yeah, it could be a relevant skill for us all to learn. I mean, imagine the reach we'd have. So it's exciting.
So right now, Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask exactly what's going on. I see you dug a tunnel for that.
Yeah, I started with this whole kind of rural dirt area, and now the futuristic kind of, name toss of the hat. I'm trying to explore how I can merge the two ideas. But I think what we need to do is kind of commit to one. You can totally go for that contrasty theme, which I'm kind of exploring. But the more you kind of make a niche and a cool idea and you build on it, I think the better your end product will be. So with this futuristic kind of side scroller, we're going to add several different assets just to kind of give us, a good color scheme. But I want to focus on the terraforming aspect first. And that means just kind of building out the platform experience. So when you're a player, and I'll just hop into the game, you're going to be going from left to right. And one thing I will note now that we will solve later is I'm able to move in the 3D space. With a platformer, generally, you'll be going left to right, and you won't be able to go, backwards and forwards. It's just left to right. It's like reading a book. So with this particular experience, we're going to be only on the blue paths, or we'll have, this third path that is neutral. The blue might be like something specific, like a floating platform. There might only be blue, above like a pit. But the red will always be, in this particular example, a damage block. And so those will be kind of like the pitfalls that we have to jump over. And then we also want to explore the vertical space. And that's something we'll be building towards. And then lastly, I will also be adding things in the background. So anything in the background will only kind of, help immerse the player and the game maker. So you always want to try and consider, more than just your perspective, but rather the player's perspective. The player isn't going to see all of this that I'm kind of like looking at right now. Instead, they're only experiencing the left to right, platformer that we're continuing to build.
So Halfd0rk, I have a question.
Sure.
Now, I've seen games where somebody can go into an interior or they teleport by dying and respawning. They do that method. Now, it seems that you're only using a very small sliver of the precious real estate that you have using the 2D side-scroller method. Now, would there be a possibility to, at the end of one side of the cube, your character dies, respawns at a different angle on a different side? So if the spawn point is tilted, maybe you could use all four corners of your 3D land.
Yes, and I'm very glad you asked. I actually built an example in a different kind of template, a different land that we'll look at later. Again, these are kind of like advanced questions that we'll build up to. That way we're not kind of jumping around too much. Because, a lot of us here in chat are likely beginners. And so I want to give you a good kind of comprehensive idea of how the game maker kind of connects. And so starting with terraforming, I think, is the best way to learn. It's honestly my way, my first kind of introduction, like how I personally started in the game maker, was just building. It's so kind of liberating. It's freeing. You're literally drawing, in 3D space with voxels. But yes, I can confirm that you can basically teleport from one end of the map to another side, and we will explore that later in this stream.
That's exciting. Are there
right now, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna ask Halfd0rk, for all the people new to Game Maker in the chat, are there a couple of specific YouTubers or people in the Sandbox community that you found to be super helpful in learning Game Maker?
Oh yes, I highly recommend VPire and Cyber Dragon. There are two YouTubers that have kind of built specific tutorials for the game maker itself. Also Andy Ritchie, another great tutorial resource on YouTube. So the three I mentioned were VPire, Cyber Dragon, and Andy Ritchie. So the three of them, if you Google search their name with Sandbox, their tutorial should pop up, and it's a great starting spot as well as like advanced tactics and tutorials. So highly recommend them. So right now I'm just kind of like building this background a little bit more. I didn't like the contrasting dirt, so what I'm doing is I'm holding down Control and dragging over the dirt I want to replace. We will come back to this part. However, if I were to load in, you can't even see it right now, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. But as we continue, we can explore some of the other blocks that we were, given. So let's say I wanted to adjust several blocks at a time. We can now move into this part of the brush tutorial, which is like diamonds, cubes, and spheres. So as one could guess, like the sphere brush will make a sphere shape. The cube brush would make a cube shape. And then the diamond would make a diamond shape. And it's not making it completely flat simply because the diamond itself is kind of like pyramid up, pyramid down. And so if we were to kind of remove some of this wall here, you'll be able to see it a little bit clearer. But in general, you're able to kind of like draw using these brush tools and make cool kind of shapes as you go. So like, for example, I'm holding down Control and replacing this wall here and creating a cool design on the back.
That is so cool, dude.
Pretty neato.
Yeah, the circle and the square, I love that. I don't know if you intended it to be there, but
yeah, we can totally play with that design. So I was just kind of talking my way through it, but as I'm looking at it, like, this is cool. We can have like a circle, we can do a square, we can make an X, we can do a triangle. And so obviously circle and square are easier, and we can use those for this example, but it's just the sky is the limit, and whatever your mind creates, try to incorporate it into your designs and your game.
So we got a question in the chat from Redcastle88, Halfd0rk. Is there a way to create a drawbridge in the Game Maker?
For sure. So drawbridges we can create using the door function. For those of you familiar with Game Maker, you might know what I'm talking about, is the behavior. So right now I have sorted on the left side of the screen here, blocks and entities. So let's say this bridge. And just to give like an example, we can add a, well, these are definitely advanced thoughts and techniques that might take me several minutes to explain as I kind of troubleshoot my way through it. But the idea being is we can like have this on a pivot. We could, make it a door. And there's actually several ways to create like a mechanic in the Game Maker. So whatever I'm describing might not be like the one you use. You might find something that works better for your needs. So for example, like the door is an option. Even though this bridge is not a door, whenever you interact with it, it will kind of animate, or it might rotate around a pivot. So this opening has its own section here to rotate around a pivot.
Yo, what?
So let's just see what happens if I interact with it. And this just gives you an idea that you can make things move in the Game Maker. And I implore each and every one of you to just poke around and try and troubleshoot yourself. It's honestly the best way to learn is by, jumping into the deep end, so to speak.
Ed wishes he had a Halfd0rk lesson before we jumped into Star Factions. I bet.
For real.
Well, Star Factions, you guys are revealing more and more information, so I'm loving the hype.
It's gonna be hype. No, but
Definitely
Any
a
more
community-driven game. We want to get everybody's word and on where it's headed. Get their input.
100%.
actually today, we will be sending over the Star Factions NFTs.
Ooh, beans.
Yep. But no, Bobby Totino for the chat is like I would say there are two parts of the Game Maker that we've used the Game Maker for a little bit. So in our experience working as a team on a game together, there's like what Halfd0rk is doing right now. There's the visual, the terraforming, the layout of the map, and then there's the logic. I do not know how to do the logic and quest lines. That was all Bobby Totino. Shout out the guy.
Appreciate it.
Nice. So yeah, Bobby will be able to answer a lot of these, simple basics that I'm kind of explaining to you. And, being a part of the Squigglyverse it's great to see how you all are teaching and creating this kind of like portfolio success method. And I think that's so important to the space. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing that.
It's cool. It's so cool when everyone skill shares. Like, that's the dream.
The dream. Living the dream.
All right. So what's going on here, Halfd0rk? Where's your head at?
So right now we've kind of built out this, one-way section. And one thing that I had touched on earlier that we'll go ahead and try and fix now is you can see I can move, backwards and forwards, but the camera's not following. So what we want to do is we'll make invisible walls so the player can't do what I'm doing right now, walking towards the background. So to do that, and I like this as like a starting kind of like asset. So it's like, oh, you just logged into the metaverse. This is your future. I hope you can escape. So let's have like a VR station to act as our kind of spawn in. And then we can hide this a little bit. Just slightly underground. So if you were curious how I did that, I selected it, just clicking on it. And then using this next tool, which is the move tool, which by the way, you can use your keybinds, U for the brush, I for move, and then O and P for the other two, but we'll get to those. If you select it and you have I, the move tool, so again, the keybind is I for this, you'll click one of these arrows. So the green arrow is for the Y axis, the red arrow is for the X axis, and then the blue is your Z axis, which is basically the depth. So X is left to right, blue is forward and backwards, and then Y is up and down. And so moving that to where we want it, just so it's, just out of sight, underneath the ground. Now we can add some cool walls. And I say cool, but I meant invisible. They're going to be invisible walls. So you can do desert wall modules. These are the default, Sandbox handed out walls. I like the carpet. There's like a white carpet. I'm probably spelling it wrong. Oh, by the way, if you ever can't find something that is there, you're likely sorting by something you shouldn't. So just make sure your filters are all turned off if you can't find something. So the white carpet, if I were to put it in the game itself, it would just be a flat carpet. But we're going to be using it as kind of like a force field, basically a way for the player to be unable to go past a certain kind of Z-axis point. And so we're going to make it invisible, and it just needs to keep those collisions. So that's the default settings. We don't need to add anything here. But now that we have an invisible carpet, we can duplicate it. And so I used a hotkey, Control-D, and you can just slowly kind of make this invisible wall. And you'll use your I key, so I to move, and then you can position it using the various axes. So now when I tab in, I can't move past that wall. And it doesn't impede, the player's perspective. It's just there to prevent them from, exploring somewhere they shouldn't.
Definitely got to add those to Star Factions, because we had the Discord just run around and explore every inch of the map, and they got into some pretty interesting places.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've unfortunately built a game that had places that would prevent you from completing the game. You literally get stuck. And so these invisible walls are a great way to prevent a player from getting stuck, because that's the most frustrating experience. Let's say you spent 10 minutes into a 20-minute game, and then you find this kind of pitfall that there's no getting out of. So invisible walls like these prevent that occurrence of being unable to proceed, to continue. So now that we've learned how to Control-D duplicate these walls, what we can do is we can select more than one wall at a time. So if I'm holding Shift, I can click each one of these. And now you can see I have all 4 selected. Control D will duplicate all 4. And then I can snap them to the grid using Shift. So I'm holding down Shift, moving them on the X-axis, and then placing them pretty much close as I can to the previous walls. And so we'll continue that all the way to the end here. And bada bing, bada boom, you've got an invisible wall.
So if you
and of course, fine-tuning.
Now, Halfd0rk, if you wanted some height as well, are you gonna have to make that invisible wall like on the y-axis as well?
Yes. However, only like the most intuitive or innovative player will be able to find a way to scale this wall. So, depending on what you have on your game here. So, for example, this metal container is a good example. So if I had it to where the player could jump on it, and then maybe there was like another object here, like a tree. Let's say this oak tree. Like if I had this to where the player could jump on the container, then jump on the tree, and then like they were smart enough to, try to jump over that invisible fence. Yes, 100%. You would want to add another layer of these walls. If anything, it's a good practice to build these walls on the Y layer too, the Y axis. And so, again, the best way to kind of make these walls is to shift click multiples, hold down shift, and then kind of put them in place. Personally, I like the white carpet, but you can use any number of objects as your walls. But yeah, let's try to jump over that invisible wall. So I set this up. We're jumping. Oh, broke the game. Now I get to explore. But yeah, so that's just one way to avoid game-breaking kind of developments.
Cool. Do you have what's the enemy in this game? Who are we attacking? I guess we have a huge range of options for mobs.
Totally.
See some
Yeah, does anybody have a suggestion from the default selection? So those of you that have explored the Game Maker before, you'll know which the defaults are. Else I'll pick one. I can always pick one. Yeah, it's not a glitch, it's a feature. I agree, Brock. So right now my wall looks very in shambles, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you have OCD like me, you're gonna want to try and fix it.
So can you select multiple pieces of walls and then make their position on the red axis, whichever one that is, X or Z? You could probably center them all on one axis, no?
Yeah, holding down shift is the best way to like snap them into place. So instead of holding shift, if I were to do it loosey-goosey, like you'll have to kind of like eyeball it, but if you hold down shift, you'll feel it kind of click, and it just snaps into a spot.
What happens if you select 2 and then on the position Z on the right side, after you select 2, how it has those orange lines? I guess if you select 2, yeah, and then on the top right of your, right below the text, white carpet, that triple orange line and Z.
Oh, this here.
If you hit 5 for Z on the third one for position, 5. Ah, okay, so I think they all scrunch up. I was wondering if they would like align.
Yeah, those are the types of questions that when you ask and you kind of do it in the space yourself, it's like you've further your own understanding. So that was a great question. I've never even tried that. So very cool. But I'll just continue to build my futuristic platformer here.
Rug.
Yeah. So these walls, again, they're just more so to prevent the player from going somewhere they shouldn't. And I won't, super align them, but in my mind, a lot of you will want to keep these, very well organized. So for the sake of just moving forward, I think you all get the idea. So let's go ahead and work on the experience itself, so the platforming. So we already decided that the red kind of blocks will be damaging. So the player is going to want to avoid them. So a simple platformer, and this is all for the sake of just exploring a game design, a game idea. A simple platformer will want to have like pits. So let's just say we have this kind of staircase here. And then you have like a shorter staircase on the other side, like a landing platform. So if the player right now were to, fall into this space and there might not be, that staircase, like they would be stuck. And then it would just be kind of like a miserable, like, oh, I have to wait until I like respawn. If there was like a ladder or something, or maybe this block didn't instantly kill you, maybe we would give the player like, a couple of opportunities to save themselves. Like we could explore that idea. But for now, we just kind of want to use these red blocks as like, oh, that's bad. I don't want to touch that. And so we can create many different ways of using the space and kind of using these like damaging blocks as an obstacle, to say the least. So, for example, we could do like just smaller kind of jump puzzles. Maybe there's going to be one that's longer that we can actually like go around. And so we kind of want to encourage the player to look at the area and then troubleshoot in real time. So it's funny because I'm troubleshooting this game design, but we're kind of doing it in a way to where the player themselves has to troubleshoot. So as an example, we could do like a vertical block here. So if the player was jumping at the wrong time, like that might hurt them or destroy them.
Ooh, it's like Flappy Bird.
Yeah, like Flappy Bird.
That could...
So we gotta jump over. Oh, and we touched it.
It's kind of creative. Maybe you could make, since they're blocks, I don't know, but like platforms, you could make like a moving platform and in the bottom is this like whole red lake. Yeah,
ooh, okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and explore that thought. So if we wanted to make a floating lake, or, something that floats across this kind of red lake here. So we clearly cannot, as a player, jump this distance. So what if we set up, like this moving platform? So here's our bridge, our wooden bridge. This is where we can start to explore some of the behavior components. So if we click on the object itself, and you're on this right side of the screen, you can see there's a tab or like this section called behavior. So clicking on anywhere in the none or on this blue, icon, you'll open up the select behavior screen. And the one we're going to be using is the basic platform. But you can see a whole list of various kind of artificial intelligence behaviors that you can give to an object. So let's start with the basic platform. It's a great way to introduce, behaviors. So if we were to drop it in game, it has a default kind of movement to it. So this is the first thing that you'll see is it moves on the x-axis. You could also make it go up or down. So the y-axis, if we did 2, it might go up. And then z, like if we wanted it to go into the background, which we don't, but just to demonstrate, you can make this platform go any which direction you like. So let's make it go all the way to the other side of the red pool. So we'll try 15. And then we can move it and just position it into a way we can see it travels the entire span and then ends here.
Should we?
Now, yeah, do you want to play through it?
Should we give it some Y as well? Give it a diagonal up? Maybe make it a little.
Ooh. I like it.
Bending.
Just a little mind bending, not too much mind bending.
Yeah. It's good.
Nice. So let's give it a little bit of space to it. And what we can do is make another platform on the other side.
Yep.
So we'll slow down the platform. It seemed to be going a little bit too fast. Let's try with 4. And we can expand our pool of death a little bit further. And using that duplicate feature, we can make another one
A little higher.
start. Yeah, a little higher, and then this one can go down.
Ooh.
And so it's like they meet in the middle here.
Ooh, and maybe for that second one, you have to jump over. While the platform moves through the red blocks, you maybe have to jump over and land on the platform.
Ooh, that's an idea. One problem that I think will pop up is like these might not meet together at the same time. So let's see it in real time, if they do actually meet up. We might have to change the timing. And so I increased the duration for them to wait, and I'm already regretting it because we've been waiting a while. So now that we're on the platform, we have to wait 10 seconds. So I'll make sure to drop a dance.
So how did you show the emotes thing?
Oh, the emotes is T. And if I hold it down, the camera doesn't follow. That's cool. But if you hold down T, you'll have this kind of hot wheel of selecting like emotes. You can also type them into chat, although you can't actually type in single player games. You can only type in social hubs. But in game, you can still use this emote wheel, which again, I'm pressing the T on my keyboard and then selecting any number of emotes.
So Halfd0rk, you mentioned social hub versus other game. Do you want to tell chat about the two different types of categories currently available for games in the sandbox?
Yeah, so the main two types of interactive experiences in the sandbox would be the social hub, which is what you'll experience in the alpha. So those of you that were in the alpha 1, you understand what a social hub is. It's basically you log in, you join the experience, and then you can see all the other people running around and having fun and exploring all of the various sandbox objects, NFTs that they put on display in this museum-like fashion. And so you can meet your friends, you can go on races and such. However, what you'll be making until, a later date when social hubs are more accessible to the average creator, you'll be making these single player experiences. So a single player experience, much like a social hub, can be hosted on a 1x1 land, a 1x2, 2x2, etc., that is built using the Sandbox Game Maker. And you, as the creator, the architect, as some people have been calling it, you can create like quests. You can have a victory screen, a defeat screen. And so this is another kind of menu that we can delve into, but like you're essentially giving the player things to do when they visit your land. And so a single player experience is almost essential to the game itself. So whatever, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Halfd0rk, if you had to be a betting man, when would you bet that the sandbox allows for MMO type experiences where right now, to my understanding, you can't really do much on a social hub. Like you can't create quests, you can't create activities that, people have to go defeat some monsters that keep spawning so there's enough monsters for everyone. In my understanding, a social hub is like you just kind of walk around and do nothing, whereas a single player experience has like this depth to it. So when do you think they're gonna, like the social hub experiences will start to look more like an MMO?
Well, what's an exciting prospect is in the Alpha Hub, you can have quests and be interacting with players at the same time. So that's a feature. Whoops, we got to adjust that a bit. But that is already like a feature that you can have in the game. It's just not accessible to us yet. So an MMO, like how you're describing it, which I'm a big fan of growing up, lost many hours to those types of games. MMOs are already implemented. It's not yet accessible to us as creators. So I can assure you that there will be, social hubs where you're questing, where you're kind of joining in on the fun. Maybe you have to collect something. Maybe you have to answer some riddles or go on quests, go slay a monster. And you can set all of these things up to where they're repeatable. So like, for example, if I were to go slay the big goblin at the back of a cave, the creator or the architect could have already put in this mechanic that makes it respawn after 10 seconds. And so these are the types of things that we're slowly building up to. And those of us that are learning the Game Maker now, like you're learning these new mechanics that can be used for experiences like those when the tools are eventually released to us.
So I think you did something mind-blowing, Halfd0rk, and I wanna go back to that because I believe I saw a tweet that you put out yesterday, effectively getting an input box for what was it, a tag of some item, and you changed the color by adding in code in a no-code game maker, which honestly I think is absolutely a hacker level total gamer move. Um, but I think that would be really interesting to maybe show as an example of how we should be thinking about Game Maker. You know, how do we crack the Game Maker open? How can we understand the underlying code, and then be able to customize and push the boundaries of this thing?
Yeah, and shout out to Tom Voxel, who also kind of encouraged more kind of exploration of that particular thought. So what I had shared the other day was HTML kind of syntax that can be added to the game itself. So right now I have this sign selected. And let's say I wanted the sign to have like a message or an indicator hovering above it. So to do that, I went to the components section after clicking my sign, add component, and then selecting indicator. So now that I have an indicator component, I can look at the display name. So right now, if I were to jump into the game, we can see it says sign. Wow, that's so interesting. But we can spice it up by adding HTML. So the HTML code, which you're learning some of that in Squigglyverse, right? For WordPress?
I mean, that's completely no code, but hey, I guess you are introducing Squigglyverse to their first line of code, Halfd0rk. Take it away. This is a historic moment.
Oh, fantastic. So the syntax for changing the color of a sign. And it's simple at first, but you can totally take it to the next level by learning hex codes as well as the various syntax that's associated with the HTML. But for example, if I wanted to change the color of this sign, I could do a left bracket color equals, and then I chose yellow, and then a right bracket. Then whatever I want to be displayed above the sign, such as, let's say, pit of despair. Whoops, I accidentally deleted it. Hello? Well, I guess we're making a new sign. So with the Game Maker, I don't know if anyone else has come across this, but if you're running it too long, undo kind of resets, so I wasn't able to get that back. But if you do color equals yellow, right bracket, then you go to the end of whatever you wanted to say. We'll say pit of red. I guess it,
So what
we can go ahead.
what you're doing is so there's like a default set of like 4 to 6 colors. No, it's like yellow, red, green that are the computer memorizes. But now,
Yes.
if you go into VoxEdit chat, literally in VoxEdit on the top right, and you go in that cool rainbow color thing, and it has this weird 315 FC1, that is the exact color that you can then, instead of writing in quotes yellow, you can bring in that hex code from VoxEdit into the Game Maker to change it, no?
Yeah, that is a fantastic suggestion. So basically, any hex code that you're already working with in the VoxEdit, let's say you had a particular shade of red, you can totally use that. And I've copy pasted a simple code from online. So I have this red here that starts with a hashtag. So it's important you have the hashtag, but then it's a 6-character, usually numbers and zeros, that follows. And so now that I have that hashtag and 6 characters, I replaced yellow, which we saw worked, and my sign was reading in yellow, and it has the default colors. Like you could just do red, you could do blue, and green, like the various different versions of colors that you'll want to have specific. You'll use these hex codes. So for example, I have this kind of brilliant red that I found online, and so by doing that 6 characters, I was able to get that specific red. And there it is.
So I have a crazy idea, Halfd0rk.
Sure.
Let's look into the default Unity fonts. and see if you can change the font, not just the color.
Yes. So on that tweet that you mentioned, Tom Voxel suggested this too. So let's say I wanted it to be not only red, I wanted the font to be large. And so experimenting with this, do whatever you want and kind of find what works for you, but you can make it bold, you can make it italic. So let's explore the size. So its size equals, and you can do any number. I think the default's usually like 12. So let's bump it up to 32. So I'm going to do size equals 32, and I'm putting them in those left and right brackets. And because of the position of my tags, these syntaxes, I'm going to go to the end of my hit of red, and I'm going to do left bracket / size. And so that closes this tag. And so again, these are advanced things that you're going to kind of explore and discover as you work in the Game Maker. If you're new to it, I highly recommend just building with terraforming and getting a feel for it, the camera, as well as, just navigating the space. That's going to be your best starting point. These, what we're just talking about now, are some of the various things you can add to your experience. Now,
dude, it worked.
Yeah, we bumped it up. It's a huge pit of red now, and now we can understand as a player jumping in for the first time, that's bad. We don't want to touch this, but I want to touch it. And so you can add these kind of flavorful, impactful kind of messages to your player as they explore in the Game Maker.
So let's make the name gigantic. Break it. Make this a million value and see what happens.
I've never gone past 32, so let's see what happens. This is 112.
What?
Oh my goodness.
Yo, Squiggly Spot, you were watching the Game Maker being broken. What are the possibilities? What are the implications of this?
Wow. I've never tried that. Let's go another step beyond. Why not? Let's go for 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the game now. The game is just pit of red.
It's just a pit.
It's just pit. Oh, okay. But
The
yeah,
red is
we'll one
implied.
component back.
The red's
Yeah,
implied.
yeah, exactly. It is red.
It's just pit.
It's just pit. That's the name of our game. But obviously, you'll want to keep it within reason.
Dude,
Very fun. I've never tried that. That's awesome. But yeah, that's more advanced stuff. You'll slowly add these types of things to your game. I highly recommend, exploring this type of feel for a platformer. And again, platformer was just a genre that we kind of suggested. You could totally just jump into, the Game Maker as it is, where it's this camera that's third person. So let me just go back to the default camera. So third person is where you'll start with. And I had kind of adjusted a angled version of the camera. So now if I were to jump in, it's third person. So this could be your platformer. It didn't have to be that 2D side scroller that I had set up. So it's all about creating this kind of unique experience in the Game Maker and what you can create and share as an experience, an interactive kind of world.
We got a question. We got a really, really, really important question from Beautiful Blanket asking, effectively what you were doing for that sign was you were, creating a style sheet, but can you add a style sheet?
Ooh.
What are the boundaries of customization here? I think Unity has built-in different fonts, so maybe there's a different font type. I think Liberation Sans is the default font in Unity, but I don't know what font pack is stored with the Game Maker, but I am just extremely interested at where are the properties. So we have size, we have color, but what other variables are lurking in the dark, waiting for us to absolutely expose them?
Oh yeah, super great question. And to follow that up, I have a URL that I can share in the chat that is a Unity document. So for those of you unaware, the Game Maker was made with Unity, so it supports this type of rich text. Tom Voxel is the one that suggested this on the tweet. Just wanted to acknowledge that. But if you click this link, it is an official Unity 3D document. that will take you to the supported text syntax. So you can make your text bold, italic, you can change the color. They're slowly adding more of these different syntaxes. I hope one day we can, add like textures to it. That would be awesome, like a new material. Like we can make it polka dotted. But some of those things aren't yet, implemented. Instead, right now, the best place to start is like bold, italic, and colors. And size. Definitely size. We saw size firsthand.
Well, let's try making a bold. Let's add a bold and an italic, and let's make that bold italic much bigger than the rest of the text. Let's see how that would look.
Oh, okay, cool. So we can do our pit as the specific bold word. So let's do left bracket, then we'll do B, we'll close the bracket. And then on the opposite side of pit, we can do /B after the brackets. And we can see if that works. So now if you kind of get a good idea or a good perspective, it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see that pit is bold compared to the rest of the word. Another thing we could do is just specify the red itself as the, red part. So we can remove the red from the other pit word and just add it to red. So let's see how that looks. And it's all about just finding what works for you in your game. So I believe I set that up right. So now it's bold pit of red.
Yo, this is sweet. All right, artists in the chat, creators in the chat, go experiment. This is a breakthrough, and we can do something with that. I just don't know what.
Yeah, the sky is the limit.
All right, what are we breaking next?
Well, you're asking all the advanced questions, and I love where your head's at. If you'd like, I can show you something I set up earlier today, basically going over an advanced mechanic. Some of you might be curious to see how teleporting works.
Yeah, and anyone in the chat, don't feel overwhelmed. We are going to have a structured, completely free course with like YouTube videos, everything like laid out in advance to give you the basics. But I do think it's very exciting to go straight into the limits of the program just to get excited about learning.
Yeah. So like in the future, I hope there's something that we can work towards of like a real workshop, like going through every single behavior component, etc. But that can be boring, like we like to jump to the fun part of the tutorial sometimes. So if anybody has specifics, obviously throw out suggestions. And yeah, beautiful blanket. Unfortunately, the material tag I do not think is supported. So that's the only issue. I do know that, bold, italic, size, and color. So those are 100% supported. But we can't really add a material because materials are often external. They're usually, something you would have in a folder or like you just can't tag or reference them at the moment. I crushed your dreams. I'm sorry, beautiful blanket.
Sad.
But yeah, simple syntax will go a long way. It really makes certain things pop in your game. Yeah, probably a future option. Exactly, Sparky. So I set this up just as kind of like a starting off point for today's discussion. And I think teleporting is such a great mechanic to add to your game. And especially with this platformer feel that we had kind of explored. So let me walk through some of the things that I worked on this morning just to prepare for the Squiggly podcast. This might here look familiar, and we'll look at it behind the scenes. But I'm currently limited to going left to right, and so I'm making my way down this mountain, which, by the way, is a templated land. Like, you can literally start with everything you see here. I've added these bridges on the water, so I'm walking across, and then I created this go to next level function. And so when I approach it, it's going to teleport me. And right now I have it simple to where it teleports me next to the victory screen. So I would enter this like next level, and then I would go and collect the victory trigger. So I'll just run through that one more time, and then we'll break it down. one thing to note is a quest is also added to this level. So as soon as I logged in or spawned in, a quest popped up and it says race to the end. So it feels like this long timer where the volcano is going to explode. I better, get a move on. And so then I'll make my way, and then I'll find this trigger, go to the next level. And so when I teleport, it kind of stopped that quest. So I basically made it out. And then when I'm ready to just kind of finish the game, I can touch this victory trigger. So now we're just going to look at all of those various assets that are part of this super simple kind of mechanic idea. So where would you like to begin, Ed, from what you just saw?
From what I just saw, I'm going to be honest, Halfd0rk, I was a little bit distracted from a slight announcement that is breaking news, if you are interested in that.
I like breaking news.
The Squiggly Course 1 winners have officially been announced by Halfd0rk, and they are, let's see if this works, the winners of the Sandbox Game Building Contest with Squigglyverse. First place, Bryson Barthol. Second place, Erica Gloom. And third place, Akeen77, guys. This is a big deal. All of these students, once of Squiggly, are now officially in the Halfd0rk community, winning NFTs, winning rewards. We'll get back to making games, but I just wanted to give a sincere congratulations, guys. Like, look at this. This is ridiculous art built in a matter of a couple of weeks. I was not expecting this level of quality. I was not expecting this level of excitement and commitment. So all I gotta say is to everyone watching, seriously, you guys blow my mind and all of that. And I want to say, keep at it, because we're having course 2 covering animation. We're gonna have course 3 covering Game Maker. You guys already know we are having exciting partners for every single course. Halfd0rk became family with course 1. We're gonna let you know who's gonna become family with course 2. All in a matter of time. Next weekend is probably when we're going to kick off animation, and then maybe 2 weeks after that, Halfd0rk, we're gonna get into some hardcore Game Maker, Twitch streaming, TikTok marketing. We're gonna help you build and sell the stuff that you build. I'm off my soapbox. Congratulations, winners. Huge deal.
Yeah, definitely. Congratulations, everybody.
Huge congrats. That's awesome. And it's so exciting to know that the future is already being thought about. Like, everything you do here with Squiggly, you're building your own soapbox. Eventually, you're going to be, your own voice in the space. So I look forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Going back to this land. I am wired in. I'm paying attention. What are we doing, Halfd0rk?
So, a couple things we set up. You'll obviously notice my cool carpets here. So the first thing you might notice is these carpets aren't invisible. So if I were to jump into the Game Maker, they're not there. So like, I just hit tab, starting the game itself, and tab is how you'll also exit out of the game if you're, working on it. So why aren't these invisible? And there's a simple explanation. I parented them to a different object, and that specific object is invisible. And so you can totally turn it off and on, and you can see that everything that's attached to this torch is now reflecting that same kind of behavior. So when I turn this torch off and on, those walls are invisible. And I've set it up to where everything is kind of connected, and we can find what I'm looking at right now, the left side of the screen. This is the hierarchy. So I was able to attach them using the hierarchy. We can scroll down and we'll eventually find our torch here. And you can see that I have 4 white carpets all attached to the torch. And what that helps with is kind of organizing as well as moving the wall if I need to, but also just turning it off and on for debugging purposes and whatnot. And having that hierarchy and attaching an object to another object allows you to create some very complicated and intuitive things in the Game Maker. And so this is just one of many examples that you'll discover on your own. And I hope you explore the hierarchy itself because it's a great way to organize things. So for example, I could rename all of these white carpets to invisible wall. And then I'll copy that invisible wall and then just name them each invisible 1, invisible wall 2, and then invisible wall 3. And invisible wall 4. So what that helps with naming conventions is when you're in the hierarchy, you can click in the search anything and you can type in invisible. And so let's say I was looking for a specific wall. Well, now that I've been able to filter, all of my assets by the invisible, like I can click and, go through each of these individually. So that was one thing I wanted to share was the hierarchy. Another thing was this NFT image. So this is another cool thing you can do with your own personal assets is you can, as long as you have an OpenSea link or something similar, you'll be able to drop it in to an asset called NFT image. So for example, this frame here, I used custom. I believe you can use like a billboard is what Sandbox provides. However, you'll want to make your own billboard just because like whatever your asset is that you want to share might not fit in this particular space. But let's go ahead and add one just for demonstration's sake. So we can go to components, NFT image, and then I'll need to find a URL. Sorry if I cut you off there, Ed. What's up?
No, I'm just getting excited and been hyped up. You're displaying NFTs, so tell us about what we're looking at. Now, is it any asset can project an NFT on it? So we could theoretically, if so, in VoxEdit, appropriately size frames around our beautiful art, maybe, and put it into the game?
So that is a very good question, and I want to demonstrate that with another object. So your first part of that was, can I put it on any object? And unfortunately, only certain objects that you've created in VoxEdit that have a flat surface, you have to use a specific tool in the Vox editor that puts an image display on it. So for example, this billboard and this board that I made, each of them has this surface here that you in VoxEdit selected, you dragged and dropped from top left to bottom right, and said, this is where I'm displaying an image. So other objects, let's just say, for example, like this billboard. This one probably will not allow us. Yeah, it doesn't. So we can't put our own custom NFT image on this because it already is its own unique asset and it wasn't given that image display. And so in VoxEdit, I can help point it out. I might even be able to bring it up, but it's its own kind of feature that you add to the VoxEdit before you export it. So again, in order to add it, you would go into the components and see we have this extra option here that wasn't on that other flat surface of an NFT image. And so in the URL, you would paste your OpenSea link and then validate it. And so that just kind of ties the link to an asset or a picture. And it also kind of clarifies that you own it. So when I go into into the Game Maker and I boot up the game, you'll want to adjust these settings, but you can also add NFT details. So now I can have it to where it tells me more information about what's displayed on the screen. And so again, the first thought I had was like, oh, this rectangle here won't fit the entire hat. So it's that's why I had this big square that I made custom in VoxEdit.
So do you have to get approved by the Sandbox to visually display your NFTs?
Yes and no. I don't think you need approval. You can quite literally put, an image on this as long as it's on OpenSea. You don't even need to own the asset. There are some limitations, and Like I don't think you can publish it without certain requirements being met, but I've been able in my own game to publish it to the drafts gallery, for example, and I had no problems displaying an NFT image.
So immediately, Halfd0rk, do you know what I'm thinking of?
What are you thinking, Ed?
Chat, you can for $0 for free 99 upload an NFT to OpenSea. Anything. You can make a piece of 2D art and you can upload it to OpenSea, mint it for 0 gas, and then link it into the sandbox, meaning you just completely added a new artistic style to your sandbox game. We're not just talking about decor. There's a lot of creative things you can do. I don't know if it supports GIFs, Halfd0rk, but if it does, and it supports animated NFTs as well, then the game has changed.
Oh, 100%. And people are asking about where in VoxEdit, so I'll go ahead and I'm going to take a screenshot because we discovered, trying to change our windows in Google Meets was having a problem. But there is a frame tool. It's on the left side of the screen. It's the very bottom. So I'll even take a screenshot. But you'll click that, and then at the top left of whatever frame you want to use, you'll drag it down to the bottom right. So there's one screenshot just to kind of give you a visual. And then you would click and drag when you want to select, that green space right there is my selection. And so I just wanted to demonstrate that so you all had a visual for what I was explaining.
Oh,
but yeah.
That's what the frame tool is. Okay, hold up. Let's talk about this frame tool. So everyone in the chat, you can see that's the Imgur image. I am intrigued by this, man, because I keep seeing that little frame tool in VoxEdit, and I'm like, I don't know what you do. So, this is big.
Yeah, and that's kind of vital, I would say, for sharing NFTs in the space. You'll see it in a lot of social hubs. So those of you that have played around in Sandbox, you've maybe stumbled into one of the social hubs like Sandhelms or we got Sandstorm social hub. Sandstorm specifically has great collections of NFTs that they circle or cycle in and out. So you'll be able to see that they use these kind of NFT displays to put up whatever they fancy during that week.
That's big time. And you said you're allowed to put any NFT in your game and it shows the ownership, right? It's just
yes.
It doesn't check your wallet, but instead it pretty much all it does is it just pulls from this hyperlink on OpenSea.
So let me see if I can get this working. But if I click on my NFT here, I have set up a component, NFT details display, that when I interact with it, it's going to show me the details of the NFT image. So let's see if that works. Yeah, it does. So when I approach this, it displays the NFT image as a component, and then a second component added to this asset allows me to interact with it and see the details of it. So this one was created by Kamisawa's, and I currently own it. So this particular NFT that I linked to is showing those details as well as a brief description of the hat. Green hat.
Yeah.
But this is Wizard of Green's lucky hat.
Crypto G says, I am pumped. This is huge for me. And yeah, Crypto
Awesome.
G is a generative artist with a lot of cool NFTs coming out. Now imagine using your sandbox space as the coolest gallery you can think of. You have voxel stuff in the background, space themed, but then you could use your sandbox land and obviously work with clients to help them do this, but effectively create a store for all of your art. And so it's kind of cool seeing all of the pieces come together. Halfd0rk really about NFTs, VoxEdit, Game Maker. It's cool seeing the pieces connect.
Yeah. And let's just say your specialty is in the VoxEdit and you're making these cool NFTs. Having other game makers and lands be able to showcase your own work. Let's just say your portfolio happens to be in someone else's game and you kind of extend that offer of, hey, would you be able to kind of put up this details message of like where you could find this asset? It's just a whole new level of marketing your own stuff. And so having it in an interactive space where it's like, oh, I can purchase this asset from so-and-so. So it all really ties together in the end. So it's all about making it interactable.
Now I am thinking about somebody in this chat. If you want $1 million sandbox idea, here it is. Somebody go build this. But imagine if you created an easy way for landowners who have these big old fields of grass, these 12 by 12s, with no intention whatsoever of what to do with them. What if you, as a builder, created some modular system where you could get NFT projects to rent out the real estate? You know what I mean? If I'm not using my plot of land, if I'm a speculator, I'm not a builder. Now instead, if I hired you as a builder to come on, build up an NFT museum, find an NFT project, and create a storefront, now me as a landowner, I don't do anything and I'm getting a percentage of all the money coming in to my land. Guys, this is a very real thing. And there's a lot of empty land. Here are some cool ways you can make some money populating it, maybe.
And yeah, I can see a future where we're all kind of meeting together in these social hubs and kind of like sharing our work with one another. I think that's so cool to imagine like an art gallery in the metaverse space. And we can all, meet up and support one another and be like, oh, I worked on this week. And oh, I worked on this week. And so it's just a fun way to kind of share, our work, our progress together. And so displaying your NFTs, I think, is just bringing that to the next level. It's like, oh, I can even click this and view it in the marketplace. So if I were to click this, you probably can't see what happens, but I can describe that it takes you to the OpenSea listing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Very cool.
It's got it's got the wheels turning for sure. I could think of like an NFT museum, keeping track of all the history of how NFTs have evolved, and kind of like the institute, the NFT Institute from Alpha 1. If y'all remember that.
Yeah,
Sandbox Alpha.
Exactly. Yeah, love it. So, I'm happy to demonstrate some of the other kind of like ideas going on in this example. There's two more that I'd love to cover, and then that's probably all I got. All I got for you. So the first thing is you can add a quest to your game maker experience. So for example, the quest that I had on screen that was flashing, it had a timer attached to it, was a race to the end. So one thing that you'll discover, and a lot of creators will talk about, is like adding kind of this sense of, like emergency, this idea that what I do is needed, to complete this game. It's giving you urgency is the word for it. So for example, the volcano is about to explode. Can you make it off the island in time? So by giving the player a sense of urgency, you're really developing this kind of like desire to play your game, this desire to continue to do, what's demanded. And so this is the first quest in my particular platform experience. And just as an example, it starts automatically. So you could even set it to where you needed to maybe like step on a platform or step on like something specific, or you had to talk to someone first. It automatically launches. Again, like this could be requires a message. And what that is boiled down to is like someone detects you, maybe you picked up an object, maybe you defeated an enemy. And so that might be what starts the quest. This particular quest has a timer on it. So it's counting down from 120 seconds before you quote unquote lose the game. So in order to beat the quest, to complete the quest, you would need to find the checkpoint. So I have it listed as checkpoint.1. And so this checkpoint basically detects the player, sends this message, checkpoint.1, and checkpoints and messages. These are things that kind of like boil down to the game itself, specifically messages. So the word messages you will use a lot in the Game Maker because that's how everything communicates with one another. Checkpoints is the advanced mechanic that I've added, and I would love to go into detail at another time, but I think there's just so much to cover with it that I'm just giving you a summary right now. So again, messages, which we've seen with every one of these sections, requires message. Like that is what the Game Maker is it's messages going from like one object to another. So this goal, we require a particular message. So to beat this quest, the message checkpoint.1 needs to be received. And once that's received, it auto completes the quest and we essentially beat the game. So let me just run through it again. Whee! Jumping off the mountain.
And this kind of message hierarchy, this message tree, is kind of how we did Star Factions. So some of the quests required the previous quest to be finished. And so it kind of had that one after the other, message after message.
Fantastic. And yeah, it's all about the flow, you know? It's like when one thing happens, the next happens.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, before I continue to ramble, any other thoughts?
This whole message, wrapping your head around the messages and trying to frame quests might get overwhelming at first, especially
Yes.
with dialogue and dialogue choices. But definitely
For sure.
just take it one step at a time. Take it slow. You'll be able to wrap your head around this engine because it's no code, so it's very intuitive.
Mhm. Exactly. And yeah, just to add to that, these messages, I'm kind of giving you a very specific example, but do keep in mind that everything in the game, like it's communicating using messages. So there's behaviors, there's components, but the messages are like the backbone. So just to continue with this particular example, I have this victory trigger is what the name of it is. And right now it's just kind of hovering, it's idle. But when it detects me, the player, so the player has its own tag. And so tags are another kind of advanced thing that you'll learn as you play with the Game Maker. So you have the tag avatar. So whenever you get close, you can even see the radius of this object. When you get close to this trigger, it's going to send a message. And so by approaching it, by entering into this blue radius, it's sending the checkpoint.1 message. And we saw in our quest that completed, our escape from the volcano.
Ooh, so we got a really good question in the chat, Halfd0rk.
Yes, hit it.
So basically, can we purchase NFTs directly from Game Maker yet, or does it simply take us to an external 2D boring Web2 website to purchase?
Currently, it is all external. I would love to explore, just poking around this NFT a little bit more, but everything that uses the NFT image also uses an asset URL, and I don't believe you can do like Sandbox assets. However, I want to explore that, so I'm going to go to Sanbox.game and try and find an asset, add that to the URL instead of this Wizzy the Green Hat. So let's experiment, see if it works. So I'm going to grab a URL real quick, and I'll be jumping right back in.
Man, chat, I don't know if y'all feel this, but here's the sense I'm starting to get is like, once you learn Vox Edit, once you learn Game Maker, once you learn the role of NFTs, all of those skills complement, and then that's 3 weeks from now, chat. 3 weeks from now, we're gonna be knowing all of the tools in the sandbox, from Magic of Voxel to Light Tracer to Vox Edit to Game Maker. If we can know all of those, my goodness, we can push the bounds of this thing for sure.
100%. So I did get the URL from the Sandbox official website of a asset for sale. Unfortunately, the NFT URL is invalid or not an OpenSea permalink URL. So I do believe at this time, OpenSea is the only option for displaying NFT images. But that being said, we can go to Sandbox official OpenSea and find Sandbox official, assets that we can use for our NFT images. Keep in mind, you can use any NFT image from OpenSea, but it just needs to be an NFT image from OpenSea. I hope I made that clear. It's just we couldn't, pull from the Sandbox marketplace itself. We just have to find the corresponding asset on OpenSea.
All right, so I have to ask you a question, Halfd0rk, and I think I'm gonna start asking every squad member that pulls up to the show. Obviously, we like Sandbox, we like it. However, when you're looking at this year and maybe beyond, Halfd0rk, what are some other blockchain games that get you excited about the metaverse, about play to earn gaming? Where are your sights outside of the Sandbox?
Oh, outside of the Sandbox. Well, I must admit that the Sandbox, I am FOMOing, and I'm all in. I'm bullish, as the kids say. Uh, but for the metaverse in general, I think being able to have a portfolio, which Squigglyverse is teaching you everything you need to know about creating your brand, is developing a set of skills, especially those that can be marketable, such as building in the Sandbox. You're going to be setting up a future of success. You're going to be creating and then having this kind of breadcrumbs of everything you've built. And it's so exciting to see that you're going to have, a brand, a business that can stem from just creating in this wonderful gaming metaverse. And I think Sandbox in particular is really building around the user experience and how we all interact with one another.
Yeah, I'm a Sandbox maximalist.
Definitely my favorite metaverse, hands down.
Sandbox is the it girl, says chat. Sandbox is home, Illuvium, Blankos? Never heard of Blankos.
Yeah, Blankos I've heard thrown around a bit. I've never tried it. Same with Decentraland.
Yeah.
I actually played a little bit of Blanca's Block Party. Not much, but it's kind of like mini games. So they've got races, they've got jump puzzles, but they do have NFTs as well. So like the little characters, you can collect NFTs.
Nice. Yeah. If it's anything like the Sandbox, I don't know if it promotes like creating your own NFTs. And that's something I think is unique to Sandbox, is where you're able to market your own creations.
Yeah, so Halfd0rk, I don't know if we would disagree on this point, but one thing I am like specifically pretty convinced of is that the user generated content is the only way that blockchain games are going to build in time. Because I mean, guys, like we are in the game maker right now. To terraform this one by one, how many weeks do you think this would take Halfd0rk to like actually build this thing from scratch?
So what's nice is that is a perfect segue into game jams. Like there are challenges pretty much every month now of building a game within that month. So for example, I'm participating in the Fungi's game jam right now that started February 1st, ends February 28th. So in general, you can, given a couple hours a day, you can make a game in a month, make an experience in a month or less.
Yeah.
Hey, we're living proof of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've done one game jam before, and it was basically me getting my feet wet. And now that I've developed, a certain array of skills, I'm able to, continue to build my experience and, level up, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think the experience of building should like take all of your worries about somebody copying you away. Because I'll tell you, Halfd0rk, like if I look at somebody's Minecraft build, the my first impression is like, wow. Like I know what idea you have, but like if you go in and you are voxel by voxel, block by block, terraforming, wiring up a piece of land, you can't copy that. So I think as creators, like I mean, I don't feel much much concern that somebody would look at my game and maybe copy it, because it's like, look at my game, like, please recreate this. Like, this took blood, sweat, and tears. And I think that you know, as a creator, don't worry about being copied, because it's really time consuming, and if somebody wanted to copy it, they would just spend a lot of time.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. And it's something that I've come to terms with as a creator and as a streamer. It's, you're sharing your work and you're sharing your progress. But like you said, at the end of the day, it's like you can understand how much time, effort, and energy went into the thing that you're watching or you're kind of like exploring. And while yes, you know, you'll see, you know, the secrets and the how-to and how everything connects. But at the same time, like, everything takes time. It takes, you know, a specific amount of creativity, and everyone has, and I will say this often, everyone has a unique voice and a unique perspective and a unique self-expression, and whatever you build is going to be uniquely yours. And so all I can ask is that you share it with the world, you know?
Yeah, and somebody compared video games today to, like, you know, the books of 10, 20 years ago, the fiction books that told stories that inspired imagination. Now it's through video games that we can share things, and we'll get into world building at Squiggly too. But again, you know, creating these immersive, compelling stories, games are a really good way to get ideas across, which has a lot of benefits, more than just fun.
Yes, and interactive stories, like, we are living in an exciting time. This is like, we're building places that people can interact with and talk to and be their own hero. Like, you're the main character of your own life, you know? And so when you're able to, as in the metaverse, you know, log in and kind of save the day, like, you know, this volcano, maybe we could add a quest to where you could prevent it from exploding in the first place. And so you give this sense of, you know, heroicness to your game, and then someone experiences it. Maybe it, you know, it gives them inspiration in their own endeavors. And so I don't know, I just love storytelling in general because you can inspire people.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that it makes the game so much better. Like, I don't know if you guys ever played like Morrowind or Oblivion, but like the Elder Scrolls series were probably some of my early, like, just complete immersion games. For the first time, I was like thrown into this world, and I would sit reading these like digital codexes, like just reading. I was like reading books within the game because it was that interesting to me. So as you build games, chat, like, yes, mechanics are important, but the more of a brand you can build, the more of a story, the more of like the IP that you can build, the more successful, I guess, you'll be able to be in this.
Yeah, it's just building a skill set. You just gotta commit the time, and then I hope, you know, you find fulfillment from it, from learning this new software, from learning how to be a better storyteller, making games, maybe making box edit, and of course finding your own specialty and what you really are excited to do. So, you know, wake up in the morning and be like, yeah, I can't wait to finish that sword that I started, or I can't wait to figure out how to, you know, make these two characters talk to each other, or how that quest, like how I can make it so much more interactive.
Yeah, and speaking of interactive, we have in the chat Beautiful Blanket asking about the function to throw an object. Now, I know that there's a way to break the physics and make a cannon. Cyber Dragon taught us how to do it. We have it in Star Factions. But maybe it'd be helpful to just look at the component for like pickable, you know, where you can like lift something and then drop something.
Yes, and thank you. I personally, I haven't been able to make a cannon because I haven't tried. I know it's possible, and as you said, Cyber Dragon even made a tutorial, so I highly recommend you check out that YouTube tutorial by Cyber Dragon, Sandbox tutorials, and he will kind of walk you through it. But what Ed had mentioned is we can go into the simpler side of things and use the pickable component, and just by interacting with it, by pressing E, which is the default interact button, I can pick it up. I also set it to where it has gravity attached to it. So now when I pick up this boulder, let's just say I kind of drop it off the mountain. it'll bounce and you know, gravity does the work. So what's nice is you can use a chain of messages as well as, you know, objects that will interact with each other in a specific way to where this boulder, like maybe when you push a button, for example, will send it flying. And I wonder if I can, you know, throw something together, but might as well try. But would love to hear more questions. I can't say that I am an expert at this particular mechanic, so, but I'm gonna do my best to make something up.
I'm definitely excited to try out Pickable as well, because yesterday I was playing around with a checkerboard set, and I've made the checkers pieces, but I didn't know how to make them functional. So once I found out about Pickable, I was like, oh, the player could just pick it up and interact with it like you normally would. And then going off of that, you could make a chess set. You can make any kind of game piece, any kind of game, board game.
Yeah, like a chess game. That sounds so much fun to, you know, be in third person and kind of watch these pieces move particular ways. But again, these are like complicated, advanced mechanics that as a beginner, you might not be able to kind of work out the first time, but you'll be building up and you'll be creating this skill set that will eventually kind of like it'll click. You'll know like, oh, so if I do this, this, and this, it will move, you know, a space ahead.
Yeah, well, with Pickable, it wouldn't have to get super complicated. You could just have the players
True.
do the game rules.
Yeah, true. As long as you know how to play chess, you're golden.
Dude, if you're gonna make chess in the sandbox, that seems really brutal.
Yeah, when you suggested it, I'm like, oh, so if I say, you know, knight to e7, like it's gonna do it automatically?
Yeah, no, wrapping my head around that would make my head explode.
Yeah.
That's like trying to do the checkers set would be like so much simpler, but I couldn't even figure that out. But once I found out about Pickable, I was like, I'll let the player deal with it.
Yeah, and a lot of the fun comes from like building that chess set and box edit too.
Yeah, and we got
Definitely, I'm excited to build all the little pieces and make them round, kind of how like Erica showed me.
Yeah, and it's exciting stuff. And as you can see, the object on the screen is I don't know, physics affected? It's doing something. It's doing its thing.
So I was just trying to hack something together, but basically I had this platform turn on when I stepped close to it, and it didn't give it very much momentum. So I was wondering how I could improve the momentum of it.
So how you can improve the momentum? Ooh, what? That's interesting.
But yeah, just playing with things like those. You know, you'll teach yourself. You'll learn more.
Yeah.
Can you attach an object to a player? Beautiful blanket asks. You can pick up objects using the pickable for sure, but attaching one, it's a good question.
I think within global parameters, I mean, you could set the player to like come equipped with something.
Right.
But
you'd be able to change that out. Yeah.
Got some nice weapons.
Very good question.
There.
Thanks. I'm a big fan of the well-priced, mind you, voxel blaze creations from Blaze Games. So they were 21 sand each. So I made sure to grab my favorites. And they were all legendary. So that was also like very enticing. But yeah. Cool. You guys don't want to see my weapon collection. That is dorky, and I'm only half dorky, okay?
Mr. Winning 24/7 says, I'd like the community to start creating its own decentralized game jams. That would be a good fork in this road and leading to thinking outside the box. So chat, this is something that I feel very strong about, is the competition model where the top 3 of anything get a big payout, and everyone else who contributes is maybe a less efficient way to aggregate creative labor. So how does a community incentivize themselves to share skills? It's a question we're trying to answer at Squiggly, and our answer so far has been, you know, just bring as many builders onto the stream, get people sharing their workflow. And I don't know, Halfd0rk, do you have any other ideas about community skill sharing? Like, what can we do to take our collective knowledge to the next level?
I highly recommend being active in Twitter and just throwing questions out there into the void. Also, Twitch chat. So as you all are asking questions here, there are going to be streamers in the Sandbox every so often. So come in, say hi, introduce yourself, and then, throw out a question. Maybe they'll take, a little bit of time to demonstrate it on stream. As long as it's, friendly, conversational, and you're getting to know the people in the community, you'll be surprised at, the communal knowledge that we all share and want to share. And so part of my streams, which I'm Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I want to help, people understand, the basics as well as my troubleshooting methods and like how I approach problems. And it's something I hope more like content creators and streamers will do is just have this kind of like office hours session where you're, answering and interacting with the people that want to learn.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can do that. I mean, I'm gonna like maybe try to stream every day, but I feel like it's a little bit of like leading to burnout. But I will say,
yes.
like if you're making stuff for the Sandbox chat, I encourage you to stream. You don't need tools. You just need like literally a couple dollars. Get set up and share your thought process. I mean, you could have 2 viewers on your Twitch stream, but those are 2 people who are learning from you. Those are 2 people who have your back. I truly think that, everyone here is so new. I started streaming, this is my 4th maybe stream ever, and Halfd0rk is a couple weeks in as well. And I agree that just putting your work out there and being a part of the community that's step 1. Who knows what step 2 is?
Yeah. Discord, again, is another great resource. And there are people that are always active in Discord. They have channels specific for Game Maker, specific for VoxEdit. Like if you have a question that you have been unable to find an answer for, let's say you were searching YouTube for a tutorial, it's just not, clicking for you. You can type up your, troubleshoot, put it into Discord. I guarantee you someone will answer as quickly as they can. And if there's a live streamer like myself, Squigglyverse, Game Dizzy, King of Crypto, and of course all the masters like Touche and Codizine, like you can ask them questions and they are more than willing to help you because we want to see the Sandbox grow, and it starts with you, creators.
Yeah. That's pretty spot on, man. So I have to ask you, Halfd0rk, do you have any games you're working on? Do you have anything interesting coming up?
I do. So the Fungi Game Jam I alluded to earlier is the current kind of like Touche sponsored and Sandbox Game also threw in, a couple of extra incentives to participate. But my fungi inspired game is called Fungus Among Us. And for those of you that have ever played Ape Escape, it is a similar game where it's like you're capturing and collecting fungi that are, fugitives. They've escaped. And so I'll give you a brief kind of like introduction to what I was working on. I've kind of created this tutorial to help introduce players to the specific mechanics in my game. I've developed what you see here is like a title screen, so like a thumbnail, if you will, which I highly recommend everyone creates, some sort of kind of typography in their game. So then when you save it, it becomes this kind of still frame image that acts as like, the front page of a book is a great example.
That's a great point.
Without going too far into details, I'm going to walk you through kind of like the gameplay of my Fungus Among Us.
This is hype. Thanks for sharing, by the way.
Of course, I'm happy to do so. So if there's any questions, I'd love to answer them, but this is like the finale of this podcast, right? Like we're wrapping up after this.
Hey, we're going wherever chat wants us to go. That's all I'm gonna say.
Very well. So in this room, you'll see a couple of things. Ignore the blocks sticking through the wall. I should definitely make a mental note to fix that. But these are the thoughts you have as a game developer. So you'll walk up to Touche here. You'll say, "Hello there, welcome to the world of fungi. My name is Touche. People call me the Fungi Professor. I've hired you from across the metaverse for an important mission, should you choose to accept it. A contagious fungi has escaped my cloning lab. Will you help me find the fungus hidden among us? How can I help?
Ooh.
And so then he'll prompt you to continue with the tutorial. You would walk into the next room. He'll say, fungi are elusive creatures. See if you can catch this specimen. Once in your custody, bring the fungi to the invention behind me, the Fungi Collector 1000. So a couple things you'll notice is there's a fungi running around, and there's this message that occurs over this invention. And so as I chase this fungi, he's actually scared of me. That's because he has the prey behavior. And he tells us when we pick him up, I'm paid by the hour for this. And we'll walk him over to the collector, and that'll complete this part of the tutorial. He'll say, well done. Fungi will hide from you in many ways. Not all will be so easy to capture. Okay. Then he says, please touch portal mushroom to continue. And so next up, we have a kind of like a TNT mechanic or a bomb. So one of my latest breeds of fungus can explode. Go on. Try bringing this TNT mushroom to that fractured wall. And so then as a player, you'd be like, oh, this must be the wall. Okay. And this must be the mushroom. So I'd walk up to it, pick it up, bring it over, sticks to the wall.
What?
Boom, boom, boom.
Dude.
And so I'll kind of glance or gloss over, how that kind of interacts, but there's several things happening. And so then you'll walk up and it'll detect the player is about to teleport. So the fungi will say, are you having fun, guy? And then Touche over here will say, continue with the tutorial. And so the last part of my tutorial is this glider. And so he says, here you can test my patent-pending mushroom glider. Yay. Climb this ladder and firmly grasp the floating device. While holding the mushroom glider, try to jump. Jump? Jumping draws air into the mushroom glider, allowing you to float upwards. However, it can only hold air for 60 seconds. Please collect 3 of the cloud mushrooms floating above to continue. And so this introduces the player to several things. Not only does it introduce the player to the mechanic of the glider, it also introduces this collecting kind of quest. So the player is now asked to collect 3 mushrooms using this device. As you approach it, it'll say, if you fall, you'll have to wait for the glider to respawn. So that makes the player a little bit more careful. They'll collect the glider, and then they'll probably, jump up and find the floating mushrooms. The glider itself uses a particular kind of like flight mechanic, and it kind of slowly glides you down if you were to...
What do you mean a particular flight dynamic? You're an alpha, man. How did you...
So this is where I kind of introduce the collective knowledge that, we've been alluding to. On Twitter, someone had come up with this kind of mistake, this bug, where if they selected a pickable object that had something underneath it, the player could use that object that was underneath as a new platform. So every time you jumped, the platform would act as this new kind of like floor. And so it became this kind of cool interactive way to fly. So you were literally jumping up, and there's this invisible rug underneath that is attached to whatever I'm holding right now. So if you were to just let go, it actually allows you to kind of like be suspended in space because there's an invisible rug underneath me holding me up. But like if I grab the glider, and I am currently holding the pickable object, gravity still does the work. And by jumping, the rug is basically acting as like the floor beneath me, and I'm just continually ascending. So that's how that works in a nutshell. But again, the purpose of this particular tutorial was to introduce the player to collecting mushrooms, which alludes to the game itself, where you're collecting fungi. So the last part of the tutorial introduces, the world and all of the things I still have to work on. I basically have 9 days now to complete my game. Hey, thanks, Chelios. And Beautiful Blanket, appreciate the compliments. V just streamed, thanks so much. And Maxi, get well soon. But lots of friends here have seen my thought process and, how I go about creating my game. And it's not perfect. In fact, there's still so much more to work on. But I'm slowly building this experience And the tutorial was a great kind of way to introduce the player to everything they might encounter in my particular 1x1 plot of land.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that sums pretty much everything up.
Yeah, I wanna like what you did there was it was an epic game dev move, because what you did was you were introducing new game mechanics, but you were giving like an onboarding to all of your new users. So they're in their own isolated room. Here's how you find the guy. And then what you would presumably do after that, after they've been onboarded to all the new mechanics, is, combine all of them together in this crazy big game, and then the player isn't lost or confused. That's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and this is something I came to understand with my first game. My first game, I kind of approached it as a pro gamer, much like myself. And so when I played it, like, everything was intuitive because I knew firsthand like what I had to do. Now I'm approaching game development as someone who's never stepped foot in my game, who's never, looked at the mechanics that I'm introducing. And I'm trying to kind of incorporate this train of thought of like, oh, if I have never played a game like this before, like, what do I need to know? Like, what is the basis of understanding that I might need to kind of complete the game, to beat, to win? And all of us want to win. And so I've introduced those mechanics through the tutorial. And now, like, the game itself is to collect fungi. So you would go around, and it's basically hide and seek with the various fungi that Touche has supplied. So this game jam specifically was sponsored by Touche, who is a creator in the space. Highly recommend them. He's also a fantastic teacher. But all of these assets that you see, like these fungi, they're his. And so the game jam revolves around, his own personal collection. And so it was very encouraging as a developer personally. Like, I don't work with Vox Edit too much. I can, just use these new assets right out of the box. And so I hope there's more game jams like this where creators, provide these assets for us as developers to just, start, and get to work, connect the dots.
So I gotta ask, right? Like, does that mean you own his NFTs now? Like, do you have a copy that you can probably sell? Because if we're all creating stuff in Vox Edit and we got asset packs that we want to give to you to let people create games like the Fungi Game Jam, how does it work with ownership? Like, are those yours now? Can you sell them?
So unfortunately, you do not own the assets for a game jam like this. Just as an example, if we were to go into edit mode, I can show you that his assets in particular, like if I search mushroom, they're all like real assets. These are completely real. Like, he likely has them in the store for sale. However, they are used in a way that I can just play with them. I cannot claim this asset, like this dragon, for example. Like, this dragon is not in my OpenSea or wallet or anything like that. I'm basically renting it, like the library. Like, when you go to the library and you rent a book or you check out a book, you don't own it. It's the library's. I'm just kind of using it. I'm borrowing it for an experience. And something to keep in mind is that this particular game jam, you aren't able to publish it because these assets aren't yours. They're Touche's. And so for the game jam itself, we're publishing to the drafts gallery, which is, for those of you familiar with Sandbox and unfamiliar, there's a drafts gallery where, templated projects and projects that people work on, it's like a sample. We still aren't able to publish an experience to our land. So that's the official, transaction or, experience, is putting it on your land itself. But the drafts gallery is you're able to kind of trial run and kind of experiment and let other people play your game. But yeah, I'm long-winded. Sorry.
Awesome. NFTs, Big Vox Bear says NFTs must be minted, so Touche will likely have minted his own that they share. Well, cool. I guess since Big Vox is in the chat, and this was in a point that he brought up, which as creators, this is relevant to think about polygons instead of voxels. Because although Vox Edit is a voxel-based creation tool, when you export your Vox assets into the Game Maker, in the Game Maker, it all depends on polygon count, so your face count. And so, yeah, I guess that is means if you do diagonals in Vox Edit, that might be a more optimized asset. But yeah, Halfd0rk, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share, maybe what you're excited about. I don't know. I feel like this was awesome. Like the introduction that we needed. We learned some cool stuff.
No, thank you so much, Squigglyverse, for having me, and I look forward to finishing this game. I've kind of knocked out all of the mechanics first, and so now it's more about fine-tuning. And as you played through my tutorial, those, like everything that I showed on screen, like those are the things that, you know, took days, weeks even, to just kind of work out. And I hope all of you who find obstacles and struggles in your development process, whether it's, you know, Vox Edit, animating, or, you know, putting things on the marketplace, that obstacles don't stop you. You know, you overcome, you adapt. And so what I'm working on, this Fungus Among Us game, will be playable in the next week, and I hope each and every one of you enjoys it. It's going to be part of the Fungi Game Jam, which ends on February 28th.
Absolutely. And I do want to share Halfd0rk's Twitter for anyone in the chat who is not following this legend. Let's see. The @ is @Halfd0rk, but the O is a 0. Are there any other places we can find you where we can ask you questions? Maybe a Twitch channel that you want to plug?
Yeah, for sure, and thank you. My Twitch is twitch.tv/Halfd0rk. The O in dork is a 0. You can find me streaming live my game process and troubleshooting mechanics 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. I'm booting up the stream. I've made it a habit, so you can see me there.
Are you serious, man? Are you streaming 2 hours every Monday?
Yeah, Monday through Friday. Here, I'm typing it out in chat.
Wow.
Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., 2 hours a day, 10 hours a week. That's my current game plan.
You are dedicated, my friend. Let's look at what Halfd0rk is putting out there. All right, Game Maker Q&A chat. This is some pure wisdom. Green Wizzy hats. Good morning, Game Makers. All right, guys. So you've heard it here first. We got another member of the Squiggly family checking in. Make sure to follow Halfd0rk on Twitter. Follow him on his daily streams. Hey, you guys are the reason all of this is happening. If anyone else in the chat wants to join the stream, nobody's an expert. Don't feel any pressure that you have to be a certain level to share anything that you want to share. Shout outs everyone. I mean, unless Chad or Halfd0rk has any final words, I think that makes for a good Sunday stream.
Heck yes, and it has been a pleasure. Future, any questions, please direct them to me or Squiggly. We'd be happy to get back to you. And thank you again for having me on the show, Squigglyverse.
Absolutely. Until next time, Squiggly fam. Peace out.